Jules, you gave us an amazing stat. 6 straight games in which they lose the XG battle. This is not supposed to happen. Again, for those who've been under a rock and don't know what expected goals are, essentially it's a way of measuring the quality of the chances created and the quality of chances conceded.
Yeah.
It is the single best indicator of where a team will finish over time. Now, that said, we saw this lineup that I referenced before that we had not seen before. This 4-4-2, maybe forced a little bit by the unavailability of Rodrigo,
Yeah.
but still very much a choice because you could have played Bellingham in the hole behind the two
Yeah, of
strikers, for
course.
example.
Yeah.
You had other options. You're gonna now obviously blew up in Ancelotti's face. It did not work. Equally, I think he felt that he had to try something different because what he was doing in the previous games, even the ones where they got results and they won, wasn't working.
Yeah. No, I mean, they're still looking. They're still looking. They haven't played well at all season collectively. I mean,
Yeah.
individually, Vinicius and Mbappe and others can win a game for you and sort it out for you. But collectively, as a whole, they haven't been playing great, even together. I mean, and that was so obvious to see. I think in that game on Saturday, especially compared to some of the movement that Barcelona had in the second half, where it clearly looked like what they work on and the patterns that they have already in that team with Lewandowski and with the two of the three midfielders plus the two wingers and Balde as a left back more than Koundé on the other side at right back. All of that showed on Saturday, and we saw nothing from a Real Madrid point of view. I don't want to see Jude Bellingham as a right midfielder in a 4-4-2 because even if I understand why Ancelotti did it, and again, it was to prevent Barca counter-attacking and being very good in transition, which they ended up doing because Real Madrid were chasing the game, as we said earlier. Bellingham as a right midfielder in a flat 4-4-2 doesn't make any sense.
Where do you want to see Jude Bellingham?
Personally, I would want to see him, in the heart of midfield, whether he's in a 2 or 3. But this is where he's best, not behind
Bellingham with Tchouaméni and Valverde, for example.
Exactly. That's it. And the 3,
I'm with
Tchouaméni
you.
can sit, and then you have Bellingham as just a box-to-box midfielder with a lot of freedom, and that can put all that power and ability on the ball and everything to the service of his team. On the right-hand side, he spent his time looking at Balde and defending on Balde, and that was it pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, you could have played Valverde there and put Bellingham central, which I think would have, for me, is more reasonable. I don't know what's going on behind the scenes. There's people who said, well, Bellingham now sees himself as a 10 and Ballon d'Or and this and that. But it's like, dude, you're third banana on this team right now, right? Yeah. So you've made your name playing in that central midfield position. For the good of the team, if you want to be part of it, I think it's a conversation Ancelotti needs to have.
Yeah.
And maybe he has had. Maybe he hasn't felt the moment is right. I thought that was huge. And the other reason, Bellingham is a very good passer of the ball. In fact, other than Modric, I still think there's more. I know Tchouaméni gets killed for his passing in the Spanish press. I think that's a bit unfair. I think Tchouaméni can be a good passer.
Diagonals are good.
But it's obvious that after Modric is Bellingham in this team, right? If you're talking about putting the ball where you want it, among the group of midfielders. And this takes me to my next point. All those Mbappe offsides, you were critical of the timing of the pass and stuff like that, or even just inventing, seeing a pass, seeing that kind of creativity from midfield. That came from Kroos last year. He's gone. Yeah. You've got Modric now, 39 years old. He started in midweek. Probably needed to start in midweek because that was a game at home against Borussia Dortmund leading into the Clasico. You can't screw it up. They felt he couldn't start this game. You can't be relying on a guy who's 39 years old, right?
No, but he should have started this game. For me, every day. The quality in his passing would have been the key. The players said that they worked on the offside trap at training before the game and how to run in behind without being offside. And that was the key of the game, which we all knew about it. Why would you not start your best passer when you know this is exactly how you're going to play? Running behind Kylian, running behind Vini, running behind Jude, and I'll find you. And yet, they said they worked on it. So, again, I go back to this point because it really it didn't annoy me, but I was very surprised watching the game that all the runs pretty much were all vertical. There was nothing diagonally. They would never bend their run to stay on
the
side.
old Thierry Henry, for us old timers who remember him as a player and not just as a coach and pundit. He used to have that. He mastered the art where he runs diagonally across the back line, and then or he runs horizontally, across the back line, and then he cuts diagonally.
Yeah.
Right. He mastered that. I don't know if they need to get Mbappe some Henry videos or something.
I don't know if Kylian. I mean, I felt for Kylian because, as you know, in a very biased way, as much as I love him and everything, and I wanted him to do so well. And I think that first goal that is disallowed, and rightly so, this is probably the shortest offside that he has of the 8. And it's a great finish. And the celebration, you saw how much it meant to him, and he really wanted to make a mark on that game. Didn't happen. But I just think that he needs also, maybe he just took it for granted that at some point, just with his pace and just by waiting a bit, it would be okay. But Inigo Martinez and Pau Kubasi, to be fair to them, and Koundé and Bale to some extent, but especially the two central defenders, were just outstanding on Saturday night. Really, really good.
Yeah, on the outside, I have to make this point about VAR and semi-automatic VAR. All those VAR haters, just please understand, without VAR, if you had a human being there, a little man running up and down the sidelines with a flag, and he was charged with judging those tiny offsides, which, by the way, we saw in the Arsenal game as well. It takes them an hour, and that's with the benefit of video of drawing lines on the pitch, right? Real Madrid would have won this game, I think, if there had been a human. Because you can make a strong case. 90,000 people, home ground. It's been shown. It's physically impossible for a human being to be looking, 60 meters to down the pitch as the ball goes over the top to the exact moment and who's ahead, who's behind. It's just not possible. So they err on the side of the attackers. So I just cannot, for the life of me, whereas I understand this counter argument when it comes to offsides against VAR. And the other thing is, the machines have margins of error. We know this. The machines aren't perfect. I think psychologically, the machine says so, it must be right? We take it as gospel. It's the same thing when they introduced goal line technology. The machine says it's right. Okay, so it's right. So it was a goal or a non-goal, right? All right, whatever. That's a brief digression in this game. But I think it's worth noting. And like I said, the Arsenal game, I thought was the correct decision. But you know what? I don't know. I'm not sitting there drawing lines in 3D and whatever, this nonsense that we're still stuck with because we don't have semi-automatic offside somehow in the Premier League. Taking it back to this, to the Madrid game, all this said, wrong setup, Mbappe, Vini, there were also individual errors, I thought, in the first two goals that came in quick succession, and that also changed the game. Ferland Mendy, I don't know if he switches off. He plays him offside for the first goal. And on the second goal, okay, let's credit Robert Lewandowski. He's consummate goal scorer, finding the space. But he's alone with two center backs.
Yeah.
And he perfectly, it was a great cross. He is about as far away from the two of them as he can be.
Yeah.
Those are major individual defensive errors, which I think somehow got overlooked. At that point, it was 2-0. I'm not saying the rest was garbage time, but they weren't going to come back.
No, you're right. I think it starts even with Bellingham being too far from Balde, and then coming back and still allowing him to cross the ball in that way. And you know what Balde is going to do because this is what he does. And then from a Militao and Rudiger point of view on Lewandowski, I think it's an absolute disgrace. It's almost like if they don't talk to each other, if they don't know where Lewandowski is, and I just can't believe it's a free header in the Real Madrid box like that from across. Coming from that far away is just...
And I think this one, even though I love him, I love you, Tony, but that's more on Rudiger because he can see across.
Of course.
He can see the distance between me. Militao should still be aware, but that's more on him.
Militao is the cover. Yeah, absolutely.
Turning to Barcelona, and again, I will raise my hands up. I was very skeptical about Flick coming to Barcelona, not because Flick is a bad manager, but because his football is so alien to the way Barcelona have played football before. I mean, we did see a little bit more directness in north-south. Why wouldn't you with Lamine Yamal and Ferran Torres in the Xavi tenure? But still, this very high line is getting the ball and going north-south whenever you have, even at the risk of turning the ball over.
Yeah.
This is a real mentality shift. And I want to make a point, too, about all the injuries he's had and throwing in the kids. How many years, Jules, have we heard, oh, La Masia, they're so good because every single team plays just like the first team and the kids get raised in the La Masia way and blah, 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 and the passing and the extra man and. Yeah, that's not how Barcelona's first team plays. Yeah. So these kids who go into the first team, not just, Kubarsi and Yamal, Yamal will be fine anywhere, but like Casado has been raised to do something completely different.
Yeah.
And he comes into this game to, oh, no, look, you're not going to look for the spare man. You're going to hit the ball into space and try to be direct at every opportunity. Even more so, the marginal players who maybe didn't play tonight but have contributed, people like Hector Fort, for example, right?
Yeah.
All these guys, he's managed to quickly teach them to do something completely different. And I think this is a minor miracle of coaching.
Yeah, I think it's been great. I don't know, again, like we said before, if they can last the whole season like that, because it's such an intense style and very demanding style. And maybe at some point, rotation when everybody's back fully fit, like we said on Thursday's show, in terms of midfielders and everybody, even defenders. Araujo is going to come back, Christensen is going to come back, and Gavi and De Jong and everybody. Then he can rest and give a bit of a rest to some players, because I don't know if they can go like this all the time. But it's amazing. I think the fitness work for me first, and it's no surprise that he's also a fitness coach that was in Italy for many, many years. Two, I think this high line is incredible, really is. And we are not a big fan of Inigo Martinez, not because we don't like him, but because we just thought, okay, at his edge, he's a bit slow, but he's mastering this defense. I think they've had 34 offsides so far this season, which is by far the best in the big five leagues. The second team is 23 with 24. And it's just, to have that many difference between them and the way they play and the others is incredible. And then I think when you've got a front three that is so good at the moment, so full of confidence and everything clicks so well, it's easier because they are so efficient. We said it against Bayern. They were, again, apart from the Lewandowski brain freeze, especially on the one that he hits the post in front of an empty goal, they were so good. Everything they do is right. The passing is right. The decision making is right. The movement is right. The runs are right. Everything is just right. It's so impressive.
And let's remind yourselves again, context here. You've probably seen the stat on social media. 6 players aged 21 or under, 2 of them 17-year-olds. I would also add, you have a center forward in Lewandowski who's 36 years old, and everybody thought was cooked last year. Now I think he has 14 goals already this year, had 19 overall last season. You had arguably their best player this year is Rafinha, a guy who everybody said, no, you need to sell him in the summer. He's not that good, so that we can get Nico freaking Williams, right?
Yeah.
Where's he now? I don't want to be mean to Nico Williams, great player, but imagine if that had happened. You've got a goalkeeper, Iñaki Peña, who I think they trust so little, mainly because, weirdly, he's actually not very good with his feet, where they decided they panicked after Ter Stegen got hurt. Ter Stegen, by the way, who happens to be their club captain, incidentally.
Yeah.
After he gets hurt, that they go and they convince Wojciech Szczesny to come out of retirement.
Yeah.
Szczesny, by the way, also not exactly Beckenbauer with his feet, but that is how little trust there was in Iñaki Peña, right? And then Inigo Martinez, right, who comes as a free agent. He's 32 years old. He's a bit older, a bit slower, and, doesn't establish himself as a first teamer, or certainly in the starting lineup last year. I think only 13, 14 starts in La Liga. These are the people who demolished Real Madrid.
Yeah.
And again, that is a credit to Flick. Now, all that said, you said there's a ton of question marks. We've talked about where do you fit the returning guys as they come from injury. Can you get them to do what the guys who've been playing do? Because I imagine it's easier to go and tell, I don't know, Fermin Lopez, hey, run yourself into the ground and help us with the pressing game, because we need to press. If we're going to play this high, you have to play high line. You have to press, right? Lewandowski cannot get around the pitch the way he used to, obviously, at 36. So that's what Fermin Lopez did, right? He doesn't have a lot of quality compared to the guy who replaced him, Dani Olmo, but he's running around like a madman.
Yeah.
He can't do that for 90 minutes, right? So the question is, when Gavi comes back, can Gavi do it? Can you get Dani Olmo to do it? These are big, big question marks that Flick faces. And also, fundamentally, the high line is always risky.
Yeah.
It's always
they're going to
risky.
get done, obviously. And they did a bit when he rotated too much against Osasuna, which is the only defeat that they've had in a tricky game where I think he underestimated the opposition. And then we saw what happened. So yeah, let's see. But so far, so good.
All right, 6 points and the head-to-head, which again they're going to return unless you believe Real Madrid are going to have a manita in Barcelona. Barca will have the head-to-head.
Yeah.
We're only 9 games into the season, so we're roughly a quarter of the way there.
Yeah.
This league is still all to be played for, yeah?
Carlo Ancelotti said it at the end of the game. The last time that Real Madrid lost 4-0 at home to Barcelona, they won the Champions League and La Liga that season. So it's not this doesn't mean it's a massive win. They don't happen very often, but they happen sometimes, and there's still life after, and they will be. But Real Madrid need to. I think they will recruit in January anyway. They have to. They need to wake up massively collectively, and for Barcelona, they just have to keep going again with the question marks that we raised. But when you also have Lamine Yamal in that kind of form, I mean, I just don't know where he will stop, who can stop him, because at 17 to still be able to, and you know what, for the first half hour, Gab, even the first half, let's say, I thought he forced his game. There's a couple of times where he tried to shoot and curly from just the edge of the box, and they were easy. They were better solutions, and I thought he wanted to maybe be the main guy and try too hard to be the main guy. In the second half, he was back to normal fluidity, normal service, and he was just incredible.
You mentioned, like, there are 2 more points. You mentioned recruitment. Well, if you're Real Madrid, what profile of player are you trying to recruit at this stage?
I think you need to maybe get somebody as close as Cruz as possible, and that won't be easy. And I'm not even sure who they could go for, to be fair. I didn't look into it, but there must be somebody there.
But the profile is a passing midfielder.
Yeah, passing,
a Harry Winks
who control the time. Yeah. I mean, let's not put
Maxime Lopez, Harry Winks.
Let's not put Toni Kroos in the same sentence as Maxime Lopez.
No, but genuinely, can I say something? I think for that role, you don't need a Toni Kroos necessarily. I think if you can get the movement of the players around him right, you don't need to have an all-rounder, World Cup winner, or blah, blah, blah. If you can, and you only really, I think, need this in certain situations, somebody to do that, because you still have Modric. So I'm saying if you can't get a superstar, even somebody for some of those games, and maybe in the back of his mind he thought it might be Ceballos or whatever. It's not Ceballos, obviously, right? Again, get a superstar if you can, but if you don't have a spare 80 million lying around because you're giving it all to Kylian, or you've earmarked it for Trent, I think Spain is abundant with midfielders, with little midfielders who can pass in certain situations. I think there's maybe that's another approach.
But then we'll have the same issue if you go and get, I don't know, let's say for the sake of it, Parejo, okay, at his age now, he can do a job, I'm sure, for between January and the end of the season. But then you go next season in the same problem. No, but I think this is a team.
No. But then in the meantime, you look for the long-term solution.
But if you can have it in January, may as well have it in January.
Right, but it's a lot difficult to go and shift a superstar in January and a lot more expensive. I think that's the difference.
But left back and centre back, as we saw on Saturday, is also a problem.
Yeah, I mean,
definitely. Even if you just cover a centre back, because Militao and Rudiger are better than what we saw on our second goal, for example. For Ferland Mendy, I'm not so sure.
Final point, we had to report Lamine Yamal getting racially abused. I'm going to spin this in a positive light, which is that the video came out immediately. It was taken by other people in the stands.
Yeah.
Presumably they weren't doing this to celebrate it, but to point out what they saw. You can identify the guy. Real Madrid are investigating him. And we've always said, or at least I've always said, I want clubs to take action against their own fans. Yes, there are laws. The wheels of justice, both sporting justice and criminal justice, grind very, very slowly. In the meantime, you as a club, you identify a man, and you can identify this guy. He's an absolute tool. He's wearing this ugly jacket, and he's jumping around, and he's shouting, right?
Yeah.
Shouldn't be that hard, right? You know
Yeah.
where he is. This is right after Lamin's goal, the goal to make it 3-0, I think. Very easy. You identify him, and you ban him.
Yeah.
That's a big first step.
Yeah, absolutely.